The other day, something popped up in my Facebook feed, and frankly, it's one of the things I probably enjoy most about Facebook is the memories that pop up. As a parent, you love looking back and seeing all those little pictures of your then 4 or 5 year old that's now a teenager or something like that. It makes you kind of nostalgic, and it's something that you'd probably lose track of in an era where photo albums are maybe not as common. This is kind of putting stuff in front of you. But the picture that I actually saw pop up was of a proof of a book that I wrote called The Culture Blueprint. And the Culture Blueprint, unfortunately, didn't get the attention that it probably deserved because I made the calculated error of having it ready to launch in like April of 2020. So, wrote the book, had it all ready to go in early 2020, and then the world kind of turned upside down and priorities shifted, and the idea of, hey, let's talk about culture got replaced by let's shift your business to being largely online or a hybrid model, and just adapting to the circumstances at hand to be able to stay afloat. And so the book kind of just collected dust, set back on the corner, and really, I think the only people who knew about it were some clients that maybe I had shared it with, or a PDF or something like that that were more closely connected. So I had more conversations with. And in many ways, it was a shame because I thought that it was something really, really valuable. As somebody who's been in kind of team environments for a really long time, this is, I guess, at this point, about my 45th year as a player or coach in baseball, 30 odd years coaching, and then getting into business and building teams. And frankly, I hired a team before we had our first client in my business. So it wasn't one of those solopreneur things that I added staff along the way. And, along that journey, there have been a number of, I guess, things that would be indicative of success in building culture. We took a team to the College World Series in baseball. Had a franchise organization that Franchise Business Review, one of the kind of governing bodies in the franchise world in North America, ranked as the number one franchise in midsize, so under 500 locations, in all categories, not just fitness, for franchisees' satisfaction for like 3 straight years. Had a business that was ranked as a best places to work in Kentucky, in the state that I live. And then have continued to, really prioritize culture, and in everything from the smaller kind of boutique business that I have now to coaching, travel baseball with young teenagers. And what's interesting is a lot of the things that I have learned about culture, it's not dramatically different if you're talking about 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, or if you're talking about building a franchise, or having a smaller local business. It starts at the top. It starts with the leader having to kind of set the tone for everything. And that doesn't mean they need to be the doer of all things, but they're the ones who kind of set the tone for a culture. You can't talk about, hey, we've got integrity if the leader doesn't have integrity. You can't talk about caring about certain priorities, a certain mission, if the leader's behavior isn't congruent with that. So it all starts with leadership. And then, we've got, the kind of vision that we have for the business, whether that's a specific mission, like, hey, we want to help, 1,000 business owners reach some benchmark, or 500 residents of Louisville, Kentucky lose weight, or whatever it is, or just a vision like this is what we want the business to accomplish, or the organization or the team to accomplish. We have to have something that people can kind of see where they fit in, what they're trying to do. And honestly, I think this may be something that matters a little bit more now than it would have mattered 10 or 20 years ago. I think that people want to know that they're part of something. And it's not, I don't think people are attracted to transactional. I don't know that, that during my lifetime that they weren't, but there was certainly a point where people were just like, hey, I'm just going to try to find a decent job with a decent pension. And it was very transactional. I'll do this in exchange for that and write it out. And now I think people want to have a little more purpose in their work. And so that vision matters, and we have to be able to articulate it. People need to be able to know kind of where they fit in and contribute to that. And then I think that as an organization, we want to have values, not the kind of cliche stuff that just sits on the wall that the employees don't even really know what it is, right? Like people all say, hey, I've got my core values, and they throw a plaque on the wall and they list this stuff, but none of how they operate really is in alignment with that. None of how they function, indicates that the team members have even read the plaque on the wall. I think that your values should be like filters for decision making. They should help you, really understand how you are going to make your choices, because every day we've got choices to make. Our interactions with clients or customers or patients or team members are decisions in how we're going to move the business forward, how we're going to represent our brand. Are we kind of just playing for the moment, or are we continuing to make decisions that are going to represent us well long term? And if you have values, they just give you a filter. And I think that one of the things that I learned early on is, man, you can have plenty of rules. You can have all these kind of rules and expectations of team members, whether they're people on your baseball team or employees that you have. But no matter how many you have, you don't get to cover every situation. So if you have values and you kind of help people understand how to think about decision making as a representation of the organization as a whole, then when you find those gray area spots, most of the time they're going to choose right. Most of the time they're going to make choices that would be in alignment with who, the leadership's choices. So I think that's where values really matter. I think you get to use them as a way to help people navigate the day-to-day and stay in alignment with where you're trying to go as a business. And I think the next concept that comes to mind for me in building a great culture is systems. And sometimes, we hear people say, oh, it all starts with good people. And I think that it requires good people, but it doesn't start there, because I've seen so many good people be in environments that kind of drug them down, right? They were in a job that they always had one foot out the door because they weren't treated well, or they didn't, they weren't excited about the vision. They're on a team that, didn't suit them. And so that's where I think you have to have systems even before you start to talk about people, because good people are going to want to do their job really well. They're going to want to be successful in what they do. And, really systems are simply a way to set somebody up to succeed in the role you're going to ask them to play. And sometimes we think of systems as this way of automating things when in all honesty, it's just kind of a roadmap for somebody to do the thing that needs to be done to achieve the vision of the organization, to do that thing well. And if you give somebody a roadmap, then they're going to be more likely to be successful, right? So I think systems have to be in place. Now, when I started out, I was a guy that had a 136-page playbook as a college baseball coach. I've written ops manuals for franchise organizations that I owned. I mean, we've always had that stuff, but the truth is people connect with video. And so, at this point now, if you're going to create systems, you probably want to use video because that's how people consume their information. That's how they learn things. So we want to kind of prioritize the consumption and kind of the learning of the things that you want people to connect with. And then once we've kind of checked these boxes, once we have these things in place, the right leadership, the vision, the values, the systems, then we can start to talk about people. We can, find good people. And you'll hear this from business owners or leaders all the time, anybody doing hiring, that, there are no good people, it's impossible to find good people. And is something of a student of history, I think that you could look back historically, and every generation would talk about the next generation after them being, being one with less of a work ethic, being one that, had any number of faults or flaws. And the reality is that they're different, right? Each successive generation is different, but that doesn't make them bad. It just makes them different. And so you need to connect with people in a way that appeals to them, and you need to build the opportunities around those people. And you can certainly be somebody who says, well, I'm the employer. They don't have to, they have to adapt to me. I don't have to adapt to them. Well, the reality is, you're welcome to do that. It's your business, but it doesn't work. So we can choose to do what works, or we can choose to kind of stand on our soapbox. It's a little bit like, as somebody who's been involved in the youth baseball, travel baseball world for a while. It's all the people who talk about kind of going back to the way things were in their childhood or whatever else. And that's just evolution, right? Just like their childhood wasn't the same as their parents' childhood. And in this case, hiring's not the same. People want to be part of something they believe in. So you need to hire people who connect with the vision, who understand what you're going to ask of them, and you're going to set those people up to succeed. And, these people probably need to align with you in some way from a values perspective. It doesn't mean you have to have the exact same personal values, but if you want a workplace environment that fosters some sort of longevity and some harmony, then you probably need to make sure there's some alignment there. And I also think that you have to understand, especially if you're running a small business like me, or like the majority of the people that might watch this or listen to this podcast, people don't stay in jobs for 25 years and retire very often anymore. It's not that it doesn't happen at all, but it doesn't happen with the frequency that it would have with previous generations. So you're building a job and a role that is designed to set somebody who's filling that seat, whether it's for 18 months or 24 months, or maybe some of them are longer, sets them up to succeed and isn't quite dependent on any one person to do it. That you can slide the next person that meets the criteria that job demands in, and they can fill that role too. And then finally, you need to communicate. You need to, you need to be in regular communication with people. You need to coach them up. And because the people that I serve most commonly are coaches, they are coaches of fitness or health or sports, a clientele or sport coaches. We should be relatively well equipped for that. We should be people who can coach somebody to go from where they are to being a better version, to getting the outcome they want. And because this is a job, we're talking about being successful in that job, being successful in that role we're asking them to play. It's not one of those things where you can just hand somebody a playbook and say, go get them. Hopefully it goes well, any more than you see coaches in the NFL handing a player a playbook when they go to training camp and saying, I'll see you on Sundays. It's just not the way that things work. It's not the way that human beings work. They need connection. They need feedback. And, ideally we want to catch them doing right and reinforce that stuff. And then when things maybe go wrong, we want to get them back on track. And the more you communicate with somebody, the better off you're going to be. I think that I've had reasonably good fortune with that in most every role that I've played as a leader, as a coach. And I've certainly been an over communicator with a lot of things, but typically at least people know, hey, I'm interested in them. I care about the things that we're trying to do together. I care about them as a person. And when you do that, then it probably gives you a little bit more grace when you make missteps, like the countless missteps that I've made. People, are probably a little more patient because they know that, you're connecting and communicating and actually care. Then they're going to be patient with the bumps in the road because they understand the bigger picture and they understand the relationship that you have. So when you're thinking about a culture, I know that was a bunch that I just unpacked, and I'm more than happy to send you a PDF copy of the book. Just shoot me an email at pat@rigsby.com and I'll send you a copy over. But, if you want to build something great, it's going to extend beyond your shadow. It's going to take more than just you. And I'm not suggesting this is the only way to accomplish it, but it's worked in a variety of different arenas, whether it's sport or business or building coaching communities of clients or franchise communities of franchisees. And it's all kind of followed that same general framework. And, I think that if you have that in place and you are kind of tending to it on a daily basis, you will find that your relationships are stronger, that the clients that you have, even if they leave, more often than not, you may see them again. They'll stay connected, whether they come back as clients or they're just advocates and fans. Those relationships last. I mean, some of the most gratifying things I've experienced as in my professional life are relationships I still have with players I coached over 25 years ago, clients that were clients of mine, 16, 17, 18 years ago that come back and do stuff with us now. Those sorts of things are wonderful, not, and with the client side, not just because, hey, we want good people in our programs, but because the relationship we had, clearly it wasn't viewed as transactional or they wouldn't have come back, right? And I think that's what we all want because it makes the stuff that we do more fulfilling. It makes it easier to be successful. It makes retention better. And frankly, it makes work more enjoyable. So if you want a better culture, and I'm certain that you do, take those tips or, talking points that I just went through to heart. And again, if you want a copy of the book, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send it over. Thanks.